Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Matthew Roda here. He is a husband, dad, entrepreneur, leader, and speaker. By the time this airs, he will have spoken on a stage. We'll actually have spoken together, which is going to be really awesome.
Yes,
And I'm
sir.
sure he probably doesn't think of himself as a speaker, but he is officially a speaker after speaking on this large stage. But he owns and is involved in a few different companies: Roda Marketing, Signer 57, and Battlefield Mastermind. We actually met in Apex. He's an awesome guy. Actually, just turned 40 and probably in the best shape of his life. I joked and said that he photoshopped my body on him, or his face on my body, whatever. But a little jealous because I've got a little bit more of that the dad bod you think of than he does for sure. But he's over here with three kids now, two
Four,
twins, four. Oh man,
four.
I
Yeah,
missed one
dude.
of them. So
Yep.
four kids. He's got twins that are 8 months
Three,
old.
about no, about three and a
Oh,
half. They're
oh
little
man,
still.
I'm
Yeah,
way off, man. I'm way
yeah,
off. So 3.5 months old. So for
yeah.
those of you that are parents, you totally get where he's at. He doesn't even look that tired right now. So he just wired up and energized for our show. But
Absolutely.
Matthew, man, appreciate you coming on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be on this with you. I mean, you covered most of it. I always like to say I'm a family guy first and foremost. Like that's my pride and joy, my focus. Biggest core value is family time. So that comes before everything else.
Hmm.
If you would have asked me 10 years ago if this is where I would be in my life, I would have said no, absolutely not. Had no desire to be married, really wasn't thinking kids at all. And then just met Helen, woman I'm married to, fell in love with her pretty much instantly. We were engaged within 3 months of knowing each other, kind of knew right away that
Oh
she was the
wow.
one. And we just had our, serious conversations and we were like, yep, kids are in the future plans. So we had one right after the wedding and two, and then three and four at the same time. So yeah, I've got four kids, a beautiful wife. Roda Marketing, our business, we've been doing that. My brother and I are co-owners of that. We've been doing that since 2010. It's a full service digital marketing agency. Signer 57, I got very lucky. I guess you could call it luck. Other people would call it just like doing the work and like, asking you shall receive. But I got in on that business about probably 4 months ago. Guy in Apex started it. He's local to where I'm from. I just reached out to him and I was like, dude, I love the brand. I love the vision for it. I love where you're taking it. Can I get in on it? And he was like, yeah, like send me your idea. So I put down on paper what I thought I could add value and how I could add
Mhm.
value to the business, which is all the digital marketing stuff and kind of strategy and vision. So he was like, yeah, let's, you're in. So I'm co-owner of that business. And then Battlefield Mastermind is a local central PA specific mastermind, local business owners, entrepreneurs, and just everyday people too, who want to achieve personal excellence in their lives, professionally and personally, want to win and want to help other people win. And as you mentioned, I'm a fitness freak. I have to work out every day or I get all like agitated. Like I got to burn that energy some way, somehow. So that's a big part of my life. With three daughters, and the oldest one being 4.5-ish. I'm going to be that 55-year-old dad whose daughters start dating. So I joke, but I'm dead serious that I want to be that 55, 60-year-old dad that the teenage boys knock on the front door. I open it and they're like, oh shit, that's her dad. And like strike a little bit of fear in them with my size and demeanor. So that's part of the reason why I work out every day. And then obviously just health. I'm very health conscious. I watch what I eat, run some ultra races each year, 30, 40, 50-mile races. So I just try to do as much as I can to stay healthy, stay active, stay connected to the people I love and add value to people however I can.
Man, and so you're trying to combat the boys with the different kind of guns. I
Yes,
like that.
sir. Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure you probably got a gun hidden back there
Yes,
somewhere that
sir.
you'll bring out as well.
If I need to. Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, there's some I want to dive back into of your story there, but I appreciate you sharing that. But I've got to ask the first question that I always ask. Sometimes I forget to ask this right away. I do get around to it. But how did you get over the fear of public speaking?
So, to be determined, I guess would be the best answer. How am I getting over it? Throwing myself into that situation and just trusting that I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing and I am where I'm meant to be. When I lived in I graduated college 2005, Westchester University over here in PA. I immediately moved out to San Diego, California I lived there for 5 years. And I've always had a vision. Well, I take that back. I worked a corporate job for 3 years, got laid off, got a severance, ended up deciding I'm going to work for myself moving forward. So that was about 2009, 8-ish. And since then, I haven't looked back in terms of business ownership and entrepreneurship. But around that same time that I kind of got into the freelance world and like business ownership, I really wanted to share my message with the world. And I don't think we're going to get into it here tonight, the specifics of it, but in high school, so growing up, like all-star athlete, team captain, grade school, early high school, mid high school, started doing drugs, went down the wrong path, got in trouble in the law in high school, sold more drugs in college, got in more trouble with the law in college, continued to do drugs after college. So I've made a lot of really, really bad choices in my life in terms of like career slash just overall like who I wanted to be and where I was going. So when I was in California, even though I was screwing everything up, I knew I wanted to like share a message with people and change people's lives. So I did Toastmasters. I'm sure many of
Mhm.
you have heard that. And that was kind of me being like, okay, if I ever want to get on stage, and this was 2012-ish, if I ever want to get on stage, like I should probably learn how to speak and be comfortable speaking in front of people. So I did that for like a year or two. That was probably my first major step in the direction of getting over public speaking. It's every time I got on, on stage in Toastmasters in front of this group of like 7 people was probably in that class, I was scared shitless. And it was like,
Yeah.
sweaty palms, and like I felt like my voice was cracking constantly, and like I was swaying as I was talking, like doing all the wrong things. But that was me kind of forcing myself into it. And since then, I really have not been on a stage. I've talked about marketing in front of small groups of like 5 or 10 business owners who want me to go through like the components of a successful digital marketing campaign. But I've also done a lot of podcasts. And I think doing podcasts is a great stepping stone in terms of it's not a stage, it's not live in the moment and like, lights are on you, but it is talking, it is communicating, it is sharing your message, it is getting comfortable with, telling people who you are and what your story is. So all those pieces combined have led me to, like you mentioned, speaking in 3 days on a stage. I think there's going to be like 70 people there, and then some people live
Yeah.
streaming. So it's a pretty big deal for me. But I'm super confident and excited about it. Like I know I'm going to screw up probably in some form or another, but I also know that's part of the process. And anybody who's been there and done that and is successful at speaking would probably say their first handful of times were complete disasters. Even I don't think it'll be a complete disaster, but like looking back, I'll probably like that was a complete disaster once I get some, experience under my belt and get better and better at it as I go.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just like a podcast, you start those first couple episodes, you think, oh, it's not that bad, but then you go back after 100 episodes, you're like, "Ooh, man, that was
Yeah,
bad. I can't believe people even hung in with me here."
exactly
So,
right.
so definitely there. And Toastmasters is an amazing organization, really help you get over that fear of public speaking and learn that not strategy. I mean, I guess there is some strategy in
Yeah,
there, but your basic essentials, if you will, of public speaking.
correct.
But I like that you also brought up the whole podcast thing because honestly, to me, a podcast is a lot more difficult to speak as far as speaking goes. Now, speaking on stage definitely is a lot bigger obstacle, if you will,
Mhm.
something that in our mind is a lot harder to do than I can just sit here on a camera and talk to you right now. Or a lot of podcasts are audio only. So, people
Yeah,
aren't even going to see your face versus being up there on that stage. With podcasting is harder, especially as the guest, because here I ask you a question, all of a sudden you've got to answer it now. And you
yeah,
have no clue what my question is going to be unless I gave you a list of questions, which in this case I didn't give you those. I never give
yep,
anybody except for the first and last question. Those are the only ones I ever give, but it's like right before we get on.
yeah,
So you don't really have preparation unless you've been listening to the podcast.
yeah.
But on stage, you're prepared, you know what you're going to talk about. So, in the essence of actually speaking, to me, that stage is a lot easier to speak on than it is on a podcast, just because it's off the cuff.
Yeah, that's awesome feedback. Gives me some peace of mind.
Yeah, man, you're gonna do awesome. And before we go into that, I do want to go back real quick and bring out a point that you mentioned with Signer 57. Be able to get on with this guy that's done a lot of different businesses. You came in, you gave ideas, but how long did you have your business? Well, actually, you had both the businesses, but you had the Battlefield Mastermind before getting on with that as well. So, how
Yeah.
long were you running those two businesses before this opportunity came up?
Yeah, so Roda Marketing we're in our 12th or 13th year. So we've been doing it for a long time, and it's morphed through the years from just
Mm,
SEO company to SEO and website design development, and then social media and paid advertisements. So it's grown over the years, and so is our client base, obviously. Battlefield, and we actually did so kind of we did Jeff, his name's Jeff, Signer 57, founder
Mhm.
and co-owner. We did his website for one of his local businesses
Mhm.
probably 8 months ago, and we finished it, let's say 4 months ago. Around the same time, I launched Battlefield, and because I knew him through Apex, I knew him through doing his website. He's been part of like a local networking group that I'm part of. He was one of the very first people I reached out to, and I was like, "Hey, I just launched this thing called Battlefield Mastermind. I'd love to have you." And like that night, he signed up. He was like, "I want to support you. Like, I believe in you. Let's do it." So, yeah, I think he was actually
Nice.
the first person to actually sign up, and it was like right there on the spot. So I think I was able to add value to him and for him to see what I can bring to the table through just knowing him for a couple years, like in the local community, and then doing his website and delivering a product that he was really proud of and doing it in a professional way, and then
Mhm.
inviting him into the mastermind and him seeing that I'm doing my best to create leaders and have a positive impact in the world. So when I reached out to him and was like, dude, I love your brand, I want to be part of it, it wasn't like a cold email. He'd never heard of me before. Like it was,
Mm.
the work had been done per
Yeah.
se, where I felt confident that, A, he was going to see my name in his inbox, B, he was going to open it, and C, whether or not he said yes to the idea, he was at least going to read it and consider it. So to me, it was like, check, check, check. Okay. Like the worst thing that could happen is I reach out to him and I share my desire to be a part of this and to help him grow it quicker. And he says,
Mhm.
no, I'm not interested. And really, okay, like life goes on, look for the next opportunity. So that was basically the reason I reached out to him. So it was, probably that was, I guess, 3, 4 months ago, and it was an immediate
Okay.
yes. And we're about to launch the new website hopefully later this week before the speech happens. To be determined. Just anyone that does website design development knows
Oh,
there's
yeah.
always something that pops up at the end. So we're trying to deal with that right now. But if it's not this week, it'll be next week. But yeah, I'm super excited about that business because I'm pro America, I'm pro freedom, I'm all the above, and this is allowing me to get my fingerprint on a brand and lifestyle apparel that supports that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm working with an awesome business owner as well. I
Yeah,
know he's
he's a
been in business
stud.
for a long time too. So
Yep.
that's awesome there. But I see kind of three things here. One, you were already doing the work. You've been in business. You've been proving yourself. And two, you kind of did the work for him. Three, you just went in, or two, whatever. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at on
Yeah.
my numbers, but you went in for that ask. You actually asked him about that, but you built up this rapport with him overall before you went in for that ask. And then you also had an idea. Like, I mean, I know you asked the question. You're like, okay, here, boom, boom, boom. Here's the things I can help you with.
Yeah.
You had ideas for him instead of like, well, I mean, I just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Is if
Can
that would have
can
been
you
the
tell me what
case,
I can do? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If that would have been the case, I've been like, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah, yeah, I'm good, man.
Thanks,
I'm
but no
good.
thanks. Yeah, if I
Yeah.
would have done that, I would have been asking him to do more work. Like,
Hmm.
hey, can you tell me what you can do? Like now he's got to think about what roles I can fill, what work I can do. Which, if someone approached me like that, I'd be like, no, like I could just do it, or I would have hired someone or found someone that can do other things that I'm not thinking of. So yeah, basically giving him like a blueprint of like, here's how I can get in, here's what I can do, here's how I think I can grow it, quicker than technically you
Hmm.
could by yourself. It was, I don't want to say it was a no-brainer, but it was like, what do I have to lose? Like, this
Yeah.
guy's going to come in and throw fuel onto the flame. Let's make this happen. So it
Yeah.
worked out.
Exactly. Well, man, I appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to just kind of bring up that point, a little side note from the stage speaking, yeah, and all
Yeah.
that stuff, because I think that's an important thing that a lot of people don't realize, that there is work you have to put in. There are things you have to do before you just get these opportunities. I
Yeah.
mean, really it goes to speaking on stages. Are you using social media? Are you networking with people? Do people actually know you? Have you proven yourself to be able to have done the work to be able to speak well so that you can get on stage?
Yep.
That's the important thing. Do you know what you're going to talk about? Because I've had people say, "Hey, man, I'd love to get on your stage." All right. Well, what you going to speak about? I mean, I can speak on this, this, this. It's like, mindset, fitness, real estate, da, 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 da. I'm like, those are so different things.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it has nothing to do with what my event's going to be about.
Yeah.
So how are we going to tie this in? And then third thing, I haven't really even seen you speak. I don't see anything on your social media that shows me that you can speak. So why would I pick you?
Yeah.
That's a that's a big
What's your
thing.
message? Yeah. And I mean, so you made an extremely important point, and I will like slap my own hand and be like, shame on me from what you said. Cause
Hmm.
I was, when I reached out to Kyle and I was like, he's the guy who's throwing the event this Friday. And I was like, yeah, I want to be on the stage. I mean, I reached out to you, or I think at some point early on, I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Like I was the exact person you just mentioned. I was like,
Yeah.
I could talk about fitness. I could talk about mindset. I could talk about family. I could talk about starting a business. I could talk, and I'm like, there's so many things I could talk about. And like, I was
Yeah.
like overwhelmed with excitement because I'm like, there's so many things I could do. And then I'm like, well, like that's a terrible way to approach this. And then it took, you have the aha moment, but it took kind of fumbling my way through those thoughts and all that, all the possibilities for me to come to the clarity of like, okay, amidst all those different options, like what's the common denominator that they all kind of, what bucket do they all fit into that I can talk about that bucket, and then little bits and pieces of each one of those is the main part of the message that I'm sharing. So I agree. I mean, moving forward, I hope I get better at this as I grow. And like, this is now my topic that I'll talk about for, personal excellence for the foreseeable future. But that's phenomenal advice that you just gave, because I did not have that advice given to me prior to saying, hey, I'll be on stage. And it was like 2 weeks of like, I mean, I don't have long hair, but if I did, like pulling my hair out, being like, what am I going to talk about? Because there's so many things I could talk about. So knowing who you are, what your message is, what message you want to share, and how that can positively impact people is going to be a difference maker for people than just being like, hey, I want to be a speaker. Like, about what? Like, what's your qualifications, but like, what are you living and breathing that makes you qualified to speak on that topic?
Yeah, and that's a tough thing. And I was actually talking with somebody today. She does real estate investments and she wants to speak on that more. She's spoken a little bit, but she wants to get on more stages and speak about investing. And she's telling me, well, I mean, I haven't done a ton like other people, but I have done $50 million in investment real estate. And I'm like, well, you may not be a Grant Cardone or somebody
Yeah.
else that's very big in the real estate space, in the real estate investing space, but I mean, I've done $0.
Yeah. I was going to
So if
say,
I want to
same.
learn,
Yeah.
I'm going to learn better from you having done 50 million versus the billions of dollars or whatever that
Yeah.
Grant Cardone's done, or somebody of that same caliber.
Yep.
So just because you have to have some kind of experience, like you said, but you don't have to have the experience. You don't have to be the guy or girl that
Yep.
has all the experience to be able to teach somebody. Basically, you need to be one step ahead of somebody else. Now, if you can be
That's
a
it.
couple more, that's great, but it comes back to being relatable. Grant Cardone can't relate with me about how to start. He could kind of talk about what he did, but it's
Yeah.
so far back, it's hard for him to understand that. And
Yeah.
and I know he always talks about like, oh, anything less than 16 doors, don't touch it. It's like
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have that kind of money. And it's funny because he didn't even start out with 16 doors, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you going to offer that advice to people? So it just kind of goes to show that, well, one is probably he wants to talk to people that can actually afford that. And
Correct.
two, it's just he's so out of touch now, where this person that was 50 million in real estate, she could probably help me out because
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I get it. Here's how you start that first house, or here's how you start a
Yep.
duplex or whatever. So
Absolutely,
you
man.
can speak as long as you have some kind of experience, but you have
Yeah.
to have some kind of experience in order to speak on that.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, great point. I'm glad you brought that up or helped bring that out there. But let's go back to the beginning. I really want to focus on how this went. I think you're a perfect person to talk about this for those listening that are trying to get on stages. And even if they've already gotten on one or two here and there, I really want to break this down, since this is fresh on your mind, about how you came about getting on this stage and then the whole journey. So let's start with, how did it come about that you were invited to be on this stage? I know you talked about it a little bit, but let's
Yeah.
dive into that.
Yeah. So in Central PA, the two guys that I reached out to when I created Battle, well, they're in Apex. Kyle Slaymaker, Jeff. I'm gonna screw up his last name. I'm not gonna
I
try to
know.
spell his last name. Gia Jacquenovo or something. Like, he says
Mhm.
it so easily, and I'm like, I can't say it. But they're
Yeah.
two guys, Central PA business owners, entrepreneurs. I kind of watched them in Apex, saw them. I was like, I'm gonna join Apex. Kind of like join the tribe that they're creating in Central PA. Did that.
Mm.
So the three of us have kind of been communicating behind the scenes for about 8 months or a year now, however long it's been, getting
Mhm.
to know each other better and being like, yeah, we need to like bring the A game to Central PA. Like, it's a business area. There's good entrepreneurs, but like there's nothing big around here. And we're like, let's create something big. So Kyle, in his own world, did the Slaymaker Summit, which we're going to be on Friday. And in my world, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that or anything like that. But I'm like, what can I do? And I was like, I'll do Battlefield Mastermind. So I created the mastermind, invited Jeff and Kyle pretty much right away. They both joined right away. So we've been kind of like intertwined in business conversations, in trying to bring something unique to Central PA, just trying to help each other grow. All the above. We've kind of like locked arms and moved forward step by step together. So kind of just like Jeff with Signer 57, when I saw that Kyle was throwing an event and he mentioned like, speakers, and he shared the venue photo. I'm like, that's an awesome venue. I just reached out, was just like, I want to be on the stage. And, he's like, well, here's like, and thank God he like took a chance on me, because if he would have been like, show me some reels or show me some video of you speaking, like, I need to know you know what you're doing, I'd been like, all right, I'm out, because like I don't have anything like that. Like like I said, I've probably talked to like group of 5, group of 10, 7, like 3 or 5 times over the years. So I have nothing to show for what I think I can do and what I can accomplish. But, again, because the work has been done, I think, and he knows who I am, and I've met him in person, and you see my social profile, and kind of like the results speak for themselves in terms of like the social credibility, and, constantly posting and sharing personal stories and business successes. He was gracious enough to be like, all right, like, you're on, and he didn't ask for a topic right away. Again, thank goodness, because if he did, I would have been like, I don't know, like, I don't have one. I want to be on the stage, and I will come up with one, and I will knock it out of the park for you. But just ask, there's so many times off topic, but on topic in my life where I've just asked, and it's led me to like, not financial fortunes, but like life fortunes and relationships and connections and stuff. That's wired like that. I don't have a fear of no. Like, if he would have said no again, I would have been like, okay, like, right back to what I was doing. Would have been no sweat off my back, and I would have stayed focused on the next opportunity, and I wouldn't have been afraid to ask the next opportunity. But yeah, I asked him, he said yes. And then I was like, okay, let's figure out exactly what's going on here, what I'm going to do. But yeah, asking ye shall receive.
Yeah, man. So two huge things. Yeah, right there. Ask, or it's not going to happen. So you do have
Yep.
to ask. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to wait till I get invited. Well, sometimes you have to go for that ask. And I
Yep.
know there's different things out there that people say, oh, never ask. People are going to ask you to be on stage. If you have to ask, you shouldn't be there or whatever. No,
Yeah.
you
I
have
don't
to go
prescribe to
ask for it.
that.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, I never asked for the sale. Like, people just sell themselves. Like, people
Yeah.
don't sell
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
You can tell them, hey, I've got this. They're not going to be like, well, here's my money, unless they
Yeah.
just really want it, or they're going to
Yeah.
get groceries. I mean, but if you're trying to sell a product or service, you have to ask for that sell.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which I think this is a really important thing, because like you said, you had no background technically in speaking. You had nothing to show for it. You weren't even technically ready, because you weren't like, hey, here's my keynote speech. Here's what I can speak about that'll
Yep.
help your event. And at that point, I'm sure in Kyle fashion, he had no clue what his event was going to be exactly either.
Yeah.
So that
Yep.
probably helped there. But you had built up the trust and credibility, which is a huge thing that a lot of people need to understand. You need to build your network. You need to get to know people. Let people know that, hey, you want to speak, because Kyle may have not picked you this time, but he would have known next time that, hey, I know that Matthew wants to speak. I'm going to bring him on stage. Actually, it
Yep.
happened to me with Josh. I'm blanking on his last name. There's so many different Joshes. This doesn't help any. But he had his event, and actually Jeff got invited like 45 minutes before he had
I
to
saw
speak.
that.
Yeah, he had invited me, I think, Friday, and I spoke Sunday. So I kind of had
Yeah.
some time to prep, but not really, because I already had things going on. But he asked me to fill in, because I had already asked him about, like, hey, if you got more spots, let me know. And so he reached
Yeah.
out to me and said, hey, I know you reached out. And so I was already kind of ready, but he knew
Yep.
I was willing to speak as well, because
Yeah.
otherwise he probably would have went to somebody else, because he said Jeff has asked as well. But I guess he went to me first for whatever reason. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe I asked before Jeff. But anyway, so he invited me on because of that. So you have to go for that ask, and you
Yeah.
have to make it known. And then also having that credibility with the person helps a ton.
Yeah. I mean, maybe someday you and I and, people we know will be like the Andy Frisellas and Ed Milettes of the
Yeah.
world, where it's like, we don't have to ask, like, people come
Mhm.
banging on the door and they're like, we want you, we need you, we'll pay whatever. Maybe it happens.
Yeah.
Chances are probably not. I'm good with that. But yeah, in the early phases of like becoming who you want to become, if
Mhm.
you're not asking, you're just like a face in the crowd, man. Like, I
Yeah.
can't imagine not asking for what I want in life, because I would get nowhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. It's, you already have it, or you already don't have it if you don't
Exactly.
ask. So if they say no when you do ask, you're in the same
I'm in the same
spot you
spot.
were.
I'm good. Yep.
Yeah, like who
Yep.
cares?
Yep.
So tell us how you're feeling about this event right now. I know this is fresh on your mind and you've been preparing for it, but tell us how you're feeling about this event and coming up to it, how these emotions have been feeling for you.
Yeah. So when I first asked and he said yes, it was pure excitement and joy because I'm like, this is a dream coming true. Like, this is
Mhm.
like phenomenal. I've been dreaming about this and I've had this on like a vision board in my mind for 10 years. And like, here we go. I was like, this is phenomenal because I turned 40 last Friday. So I'm like, literally a
Mhm.
week after my 40th birthday, a dream's going to come true. Like, this sets the tone for the next decade of my life. So like,
Nice.
stars are aligning. I feel confident. I feel good. And then probably rode that high for like 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it was like the messages started coming in a Facebook group with all the speakers. It was like, I need to know what you're speaking about and I need your presentation within the next 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like not now it's just not just like, cool, I'm gonna be on stage. It's like, this is real. Like, I need to come up with exactly what message I want to share. I need to fine tune it. So there was probably like I'd say probably a month-ish in there where what's the best adjective to describe it? Trepidation, maybe, and like a little bit of worry that I wasn't gonna like get the message right, or it wasn't gonna
Mhm.
come to me, or I was gonna talk about something that I felt like I'm not totally qualified for. I'll get up on stage and share something that people are like, who does this guy think he is to say something like? All those feelings were running through my head, and then I sat down. I work best under deadline. So I was formulating this speech in my head and kind of, listening to the podcast and be like, okay, that like resonates with me. I want to include something about that in this. And then finally, Nell, who's also the co-organizer, reached out and she was like, I need your presentations by whatever it was, like 2 Fridays from now. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, now I have to do it because like they gave me a deadline. So
That's funny
that's,
because as her and I had talked, as I done my event, I'm like, I just told people, hey, if you want a presentation, cool.
yeah,
And I had like one person that thought she had to do it. And I'm like, no, you don't have to. If you have one,
yeah.
great. If you don't, great. She's like, oh, good. I was gonna sit here in the back and do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told Nell, I'm like,
Yeah.
Nell, you have to put a deadline on this,
Yeah.
or they're gonna wait till the last minute.
I would say
And
like
then yeah,
Thursday
then she
night, the
did
night
it.
before. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
so that was
yeah.
a huge blessing in disguise because I just work best under those conditions. So it's probably like a 2 week window they gave us. So then I literally like, I run my business during the day, get the kids to bed, and I would sit down on my couch with my laptop open and just kind of start creating like keynote slides and stuff and throwing ideas into the slides. There was no serious organization. It was more just like a brain dump into it and like
Mhm.
getting all my thoughts and feelings onto paper, even though it was digital. Um, and then I did that for a night, like took a night or two off, like reviewed it for a night, took a night or two, like, and would just like, it would, I'm a firm believer that like everything happens for a reason when it's meant to happen. So I couldn't sit there and force completion of that in like the first night because it would have been terrible, I think. So I let it
Yeah.
like come out onto the paper and then I would look at it and step away from it. And then I'd have another idea. I'd throw that on the paper. And I did that probably for like a total of 7 or 10 hours. And probably that, let's say 10 hours was chunked up into like an hour here, 2 hours there, an hour, 3 hours. So it's probably like 5 different sessions where I sat down and like actually had the laptop open when it was like typing and moving stuff around. And as I was doing that and getting closer to completion, I then had a call with you. So shout out to you on this one. Like I felt pretty good about the presentation that I had created and the speech that was going to flow from that presentation. But I knew I knew I didn't hit the nail on the head. Like I knew I was like the nail was in the wood and like I had the hammer ready and lined up. I was like, I just keep missing like that one strike that gets it in there. And then I don't know, we talked for like 20, 30 minutes that day. And I
Mhm.
shared the keynote with you the night before and you reviewed it and you gave feedback that I'm not going to share like the ins and outs and the specifics of it, but you gave feedback that allowed me to take, let's call them I think it was 7 or 8 pillars of
Mhm.
personal excellence, narrow it down to 5, which I intuitively knew I needed to do, but I didn't have clarity how to do it, or if I like, did I need to, or is it just me thinking I should reduce the number? You gave me that confidence that like, yeah, get it down to 5. And then I'm not going to say the word one here, but like you threw out a word, like an acronym, and I'm like,
Mhm.
fucking brilliant. Like, this is it. So again, like I left that call and I didn't go and like change the keynote and like do everything. I like made some mental notes, let it kind of filter itself and sift its way through my mind and consciousness. And I think it was that night or maybe the next night I went in and I was just like, bang, 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 went right through it and was like, this is exactly what I envisioned and hoped. When I reached out to Kyle 3 months ago, I was like, I want to be on stage. Like, this was it. Like, the dot was connected. So once that
Mhm.
happened and I sent it to Nell and I was like, here it is, like, it's done. And she was like, this is great. I can't wait to hear you speak about it. And even if she wouldn't have said that, like, I want a confidence level of like my message that I'm going to share with people, I'm 10 out of 10. Like, I feel super confident that I'm going to at least positively impact one life. And like, as you know, as a speaker, as someone on social media who shares content all the time, I believe that if you share for the sake of just touching one person and that you accomplish that, mission accomplished. Like, I will leave
Yeah.
there feeling really good about the experience for myself, but also for that other person. And if it's 10 people, even cooler, et cetera. So I'm a 10 out of 10 in terms of the message I want to share. And I think the impact that it can make. I'm about a 8.5 out of 10 in terms of like being up on stage and like, you know, owning that space and kind of like just owning that space and like being the speaker that like the powerful, impactful speaker that I know I can be, but I have not yet been. So I'm kind of like, I can't be a 10 because like I've never done it yet. So
Yeah.
I'm leaving that 1.5 point of like, we'll see how it goes. And that's what I said to my wife the other day, like when I was talking to her, I was like, I can't wait for this like event and I can't wait to be on stage and like to be introduced and get out there and talk. My It's not a fear. My biggest concern is like normally when I talk, like I mentioned, I've done like let's say five talks in front of like 3 to 5 people at a time. It's
Hmm.
like it's a keynote behind me. It's a small, tiny room. So I'm good to just like stand there and talk and like hand in my pocket and just talk and be like, dun, 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 dun. I'm like on this stage, like, you know, I've watched enough like Eric Thomas and Ed Milet, like they're walking around, they're using their hands, like they're making a point with like voice fluctuation, like all the, I'm like, that's never been me. That is not me. So I don't want to go up there and force that to try to be something that I'm not comfortable being. But I also don't know if going up there on stage and just like standing in like a similar spot the entire time and just talking is going to like bore the shit out of people. And they're going to like, even if they don't want to check out, they're going to check out because like my demeanor is too boring and that covers the message that I'm sharing. So that's where like the semi lack of confidence is right now, is just like, how do you do that? How do you make that happen? But I also believe that you don't get good at that until you do it. So I'm
Yeah.
giving myself grace that like I can't get up there and just crush that part of it because I've never done it before. It's like trying to pick up a basketball and winning a championship and you never picked up a basketball before. Like, you got to learn to dribble and then shoot and then do layups and then learn the plays. So I'm good with the fact that I know I'm not going to be the most animated, like flamboyant, like speaker that like everyone's like, that guy was awesome. Did you see how, like, you know, from a presence standpoint, from a message standpoint, I think I can be that. So I'm like not overall, to answer your question, I'm like a 9.5 out of 10 with excitement, 0.5 of like, oh shit, like how's this gonna go?
Yeah. Dude, I totally get that, man. I love the confidence. And yeah, that speech is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see more of it. And I appreciate you sharing like how you came about getting that PowerPoint slide together, gaining this confidence and everything. But what did you do as far as actually prepping for that speech? Was it only the PowerPoint or have you actually been practicing it and going through the whole thing?
I mean, I've been opening it and in like internally going through it and like running through like transitions and stories I want to share about each piece of the puzzle. Um, but that's it. And like I
Mm,
know, like I've heard you say, and probably other people, like it makes sense to like stand up and like speak and record it and like see yourself. I am just like, I think that would do me a disservice because I think I would see that and lose confidence because I would start to nitpick myself and over
mm,
critique myself and then overanalyze it and try too hard to fix things that maybe don't even need to be fixed. So I'm just naturally like this. Hopefully, this can come out like not humble, but like I'm naturally a confident person. So I feel like I know what I want to say. I know I have the right to say it. Like I know I've
mhm.
lived what I'm about to share. I know that it's going to come from the heart. I know my intentions are good for being up there and speaking. So if that's the case, like maybe I don't say everything that I would have said had I practiced it time and time and time again, but the right things will come out of my mouth. If I stutter or like life goes on, like the crowd will probably understand that everybody makes mistakes if a mistake is made. So I have not practiced anything like that per se. I'm just like, I'm going to get up there and just be like, here I am. This is 45 minutes of the next 45 minutes of my life. I've dreamt about this. I'm going to do the absolute best I can. And it's in God's hands at that point.
Yeah, man. I totally get that. You know, as a coach, I'm supposed to tell you that you do need to practice. But man, I'm the same way, to be honest. It's hard for me to try and practice. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't even like doing homework when I was in school.
same.
Even now, like I'm taking German and everything, and we have homework and we go twice a week, and I hardly ever do the homework. Although I know if I did the homework, it'd be better. It's just that's not how I learn. Like I learn through doing,
Yep.
and so I'm gonna have a couple of those times that are gonna suck and or whatever. But still,
Yep.
I don't care. I'm just gonna go do that. And so as a coach, I had to say, like, you should practice some, but I
Fair
get it at
enough.
the same time because it is difficult to be able to try and do that. But have those ideas, have those stories. So as long as you like kind of mind map it, I guess, if you will, and you
Yeah.
know what you're gonna talk about, you're visualizing you talking about that, I think that's an important thing. But if you just expect that, hey, you've got the stage, you got this event, you've got this topic you're going to speak about, and you're like, okay, I'm going to put it in this lockbox over here, and then when it's time to do the event, I'm going to bring it out, and then I'm just
Yeah.
going to be good. No, no.
Yeah.
And I do truly believe if you practice more and more, like, it's been on the person, you will be a lot better. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you and I are about the same, where we're very good with kind of off the cuff, coming from the heart, just going with what we have in our mind and really
Yeah.
whatever is there that day. And I know Kyle talked about it with Josh's event, that is like, man, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but it was a download. It was just something that just came to my mind, and I've got to talk about this. And
Yep.
those are usually the better times, anyways.
Yeah.
And so I think we kind of resonate with this, that it's like if I prepare too much, then it's like, okay, I got to make sure I do it like how I
Scripted.
prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes very scripted. So it just depends on you. So I'll say that there, that little caveat there.
Yeah.
And I know I'll probably get some lashback for that, but
Yeah.
hey, you know, this is how I coach. I'm going to tell you how it is for me, how I do it. I'll give you the suggestions if you feel like you really need that, because I work with some clients that they need that. They need all
Yeah.
sorts of practice, and that's great. You do
Yep.
that. Whatever makes you feel most comfortable and makes you feel like you're going to create the most success,
That's
definitely
it.
do that. But
Yep.
man, I appreciate you sharing this whole journey
Yeah,
of
absolutely,
how
man.
this you got about getting this event. I'm excited for you on this event, how you went through prepping for it, or not so much prepping. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just excited, and I can't wait to be able to hear. And we'll probably, I want to actually do that, probably kind of record a little bit where we'll talk about like how you felt after that speech and
Cool.
everything, just kind of get that recap. And I think that
Yeah.
would be cool, and maybe have it as like a bonus episode to kind of like a follow up from us,
Cool.
and be cool to like be able to meet in person and talk about that, so people can get
Absolutely.
the whole journey.
I
Like, okay,
say
going
A to
from never
Z.
being on stage to getting an invite to prepping to then think what you think about being on stage to how
Yep.
you felt after that stage and how that speech went and everything. So I think it'd be really cool.
Count me
But
in,
well,
man.
yeah, awesome. I knew I could catch you in on that. But let's wind down here. I got the one last question that I like to ask everybody, and that question is: if you only had one message you could share for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna take my shirt off and show you a tattoo on the back I have, but I have a tattoo on the back that says "Don't Stop Believing." It was my dad's favorite song, and he had dementia and he passed last August, but he would hear that song towards the end of everything, and he'd still get giddy and like light up and
Hmm.
like. So the song itself has meaning to me, but those three words, "Don't Stop Believing," like the reason I got them tattooed on my back is not because it was my dad's favorite song. That was part of it to honor him, but
Hmm.
more than anything, it's because I've lived by that motto for as long as I can look back in my life and remember. High school, I was, like I mentioned, I was screwing up big time. College, I was screwing up big time. And my mom, like, they knew everything that I was doing. So they were fully aware of my screw ups. And I would say to my mom constantly, I was like, don't stop believing in me. Like, I know I'm making
Hmm.
the wrong decisions. I know I'm screwing up. I know I'm going down the wrong path, but like, I will correct this at some point and I will make you proud. So, like, saying to her, don't stop believing, but to myself, through saying that to my mom, I'm
Yeah.
telling myself, don't stop believing. So that's like a big starting point for that phrase and kind of that mentality. But then even beyond that, man, like, I've started and failed multiple businesses, but I never stopped believing that I would have a successful business or multiple successful businesses. You know, at one point I wanted to have a family and like I wanted to meet the woman of my dreams, and I never stopped believing that that was a possibility for me and I deserved that. You know, if I was the right person with a good heart, good intentions, etc., I attracted that into my life. So you know, I want to speak on stage. I never really stopped believing that that would happen. That's a 12-year dream finally coming true for me, like a decade later. So I really just feel like whatever it is you want in life, go out, do the work, and take a step towards it every single day. But underneath and around and above all that, don't stop believing that it can come true, because anyone that's been in the entrepreneur game or just life in general knows you're going to get kicked in the teeth. You're going to get hit with uppercuts and, right hooks and left hooks, and you're going to get knocked down. And if you don't, like, if you do stop believing when that tough stuff happens, you'll never achieve your dreams, because you're going to be like, okay, this wasn't meant to be down this path. And then you're going to get somewhere down that path. You're going to get knocked around again. You're going to be like, okay, this wasn't meant to be. I'm going to go this way. And you're just going to constantly bounce back and forth and never get to that end goal. But if you don't stop believing that it's meant to be, if you really, really, really want it, I seriously don't think there's anything life you can't achieve.
Man, that's so powerful. And I love that. And I definitely, no pun intended, but I believe in that too, man. Just
Yeah.
if it's in your mind, you can make it happen. It may not happen when you want it to. And oftentimes you have to go through those hardships, but keep going,
Yeah.
keep believing in yourself, and eventually it will happen. Start
Yep.
telling enough people, start putting in enough work, and all of that will happen.
Yep. Absolutely, brother.
Man, I love that. And I definitely want to hear that message at some point as well. And
Yep.
I have a feeling part of that will be in your message
It will.
on
Yep.
on a Friday. But Matthew, man, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. I appreciate you coming in and sharing all of that information on getting on that stage. I think it's important for a lot of people to understand that, especially for our people who are just getting into that. And
Yeah.
really excited to meet you, man. And by the time
Same.
this airs, we'll already have met. That'll be really cool. But man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all that value.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. My sincere pleasure.
Of course.